In this series, we're answering your questions. Today's topic is winter commuting. And the first question is, do I need a special bike or snow tires for the winter commute? Generally, you don't. And I'll tell you why. In most cases, there isn't snow on your commute every single day. In some places, that is the case where the roads are completely covered in snow and ice most of the time, and in those cases, I recommend snow tires. But for just about everybody else, snow tires aren't necessary. Regardless of how much snow you have, the conditions of the road do change pretty significantly in the winter in most places, especially here up in the Northeast. And that means there's a lot of salt, there's sand on the road, there's grit, and that stuff is going to affect your bike. Specifically, it's going to rust steel components like chains, like cables, and it's going to make your brake pads wear out faster. And that is one reason to have a belt drive bike, because a belt is going to hold up much better in those corrosive conditions. The other thing that's different about the winter is, of course, the temperature. So that doesn't affect most bikes, but it can affect the battery range of e-bikes. So keep that in mind when you're winter commuting. The next question is, do I need special clothing for winter commuting? Staying warm is really important on the bike, but it's also important not to overheat. So the general rule to start is you want to dress so that you're cold the first 5 to 10 minutes of your ride, and then your body heat will warm you up over the course of the ride. You don't want to get sweaty, because that can cause other problems. Being wet when it's cold is not a good idea. The other thing to keep in mind is that your hands and feet and your face are often the most vulnerable things out there when it's really cold. And getting bike-specific gloves is something that I absolutely recommend because they prevent wear and allow movement of your fingers when you interface with the grips and with the controls on your bike. And they also tend to have a bit more wind protection on the outside of the glove. The other thing that gets cold is your feet, and getting wool socks and footwear that resists wind is really important because your toes can get very cold out there on a cold day. Below about 40 degrees, I tend to ride with something on my face as well, either a gaiter or a face mask, something just to keep the wind off of my cheeks and nose. Eye protection also helps quite a bit for this. You don't have to go full-on goggles unless it's really cold, but some good cycling glasses do make a big difference out there. For your upper body, I recommend a wind and water-resistant layer, and that's going to help keep you warmer and dry on worse conditioned days. And then below that, you can just layer with insulating layers, depending on what kind of temperature it is outside and what your warmth needs are for you individually. For that outer layer, it can be good to get something bike-specific because of your riding position on a bike. And bike-specific stuff is designed to give you a little bit more coverage in the back and to allow more flexibility in your arms. For your legs, I find that my legs keep themselves pretty warm out there, but for bad condition riding, having something water or windproof can really help. And finally, how do I deal with the low light conditions of winter riding? And I think this is a really big one for safety because in the wintertime, not only does the sun set way earlier, so your ride home is going to be dark, but also even in morning conditions, the light can be less than it is the rest of the year. So it's good to have some extra visibility out there. And if you're forgetful like me, it's great to have lights that are integrated into your bike. If it's an e-bike, having lights that run off the battery is great. Or you could have an acoustic bike or a pedal bike with a dynamo hub up front that powers lights in the front and the back. I also recommend having some high-vis clothing or high-vis elements on your bike. A safety pizza, a reflective jacket or vest, and any other elements to add a bit of visibility to you. USB rechargeable lights also work great if you don't have lights that run off your bike. We're going to continue to answer your questions, so if you have any more questions about winter riding or anything else, post them in the comments and we'll get to them in a future video. Or if you have questions about your own setup, please reach out. Our customer service team is happy to help and we're available 7 days a week.